screaming and pleading for help. We find a male subject in a pool of blood.
The victim had been shot twice. There's evidence of torture.
What happened here?
A video was located.
One of the most chilling videos I've ever seen.
He had a new boyfriend. He's asking for an attorney right off the bat. Blood is identified on the steering wheel of the vehicle.
We're fighting very hard, day in and day out, to try to chase every lead we possibly can. What else can we look at? Who else can we talk to? We have to find a killer.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. St. Petersburg, Florida, in the heart of Florida's west coast. Nicknamed the Sunshine City, it's a popular hub for retirees and vacationers alike.
St. Pete is a wonderful city, very modern, restaurants, shops, cultural things to do, very diverse population, and a very nice place to live, to raise a family.
But in 2011, just 4 days before Christmas, the peaceful paradise is shaken by a terrifying 911 call.
911? They want to kill me! Help me!
It appears to be a male caller screaming for help, terrified.
The thing that stands out about that phone call is just the dread that was in the call.
We don't get 911 calls like this every day. Dispatchers were frantically asking, who are you? Where are you located?
What is the address?
But before they can get the man's name or address, the line suddenly goes dead.
We had no idea where he was located. So time is of the essence in this, where we have to act and we have to act fast.
Deputies trace the call to a neighborhood in Pinellas County, but they're unable to pinpoint the exact address.
We know that the call is coming from a cell phone. We are frantically trying to figure out, where do we have to go? How can we help this person? And where are they? It's like a needle in a haystack.
But just
Hours of the first 911 call, we receive a second phone call from a woman by the name of Yadira Guzman.
She's out of state on vacation visiting family. Yadira is asking for us to check on her roommate, who she believes might be in danger. So she provides us an address in the very same area of the 911 call.
When the deputies arrive, they knock on the front door and receive no response. So the deputies then check the perimeter of the residence, and they come upon a side rear door and window. They notice a glass is broken out of the window, and the back door is slightly ajar.
Which all is indicative of something is definitely not right here.
it's a potentially dangerous situation for deputies at the scene.
Deputies draw their guns and announce, Sheriff's Office, Sheriff's Office. Is anybody there? And they don't hear anything. As deputies make their way slowly through the home, they walk by this bathroom and something definitely catches their attention. There's signs of blood all over the place.
But there's no sign of any victim. They follow a trail of blood down the hallway.
The deputies see that there's a door open, and they find a male subject laying in a pool of blood. They check for a pulse or any sign of life. There's none.
The victim is identified as 21-year-old Landy Martinez.
We learned that Landy Martinez is a Cuban immigrant who moved to America with his family. Landy didn't have much as a kid. So when he moved to America, this was like the best country in the world to him and appeared to be a very good person.
Detectives Ed Judy and Amy Plourde are assigned to the case.
Detective Plord, she's just a go-getter. She's very smart, very good detective.
Ed Judy is one of my mentors. He shaped me as a police officer and as a homicide detective. And we're feeling this case. We have a 21-year-old young man who had good relationships. He had a good home with good friendships. So we want to solve this case.
Landy's body is found slightly in an open closet door.
He's wearing a white t-shirt and underwear and nothing else. And the body of the victim is completely soaking wet.
It's almost like he'd just come out of a swimming pool.
And right near Landy's body are 2 shell casings of .380 caliber.
The victim had been shot twice.
One in the chest and
The medical examiner is able to tell us very early on that the cause of death was gunshot wounds and that the manner of death would be homicide.
The question now is, why was this young man killed? Detectives look to the crime scene for answers.
one of the things we find on scene is multiple pieces of duct tape where Landy's body is located.
And on his ankles, you can see tape residue, and then there was tape residue on both of his wrists.
This evidence suggests Landy was bound before he was murdered. But when and where?
We're taking a look at the bathroom. We found multiple things in here that definitely made us raise our eyebrows. We've got a knife on the counter. There's towels with blood on them on top of the toilet.
They noticed that there's some duct tape in the bathroom.
And we located one cloth gardening type glove stopped into the shape of a ball, but there was only one glove.
Also inside the sink is a bottle of drain cleaner that's sitting in the sink upside down.
And we see that the shower doors are completely askew. They're off track. They're not where they should be. That's definitely indicative of a potential struggle that occurred in this location. So, what happened here? What occurred in here?
To find out, detectives will need to piece together the last 24 hours of Landy Martinez's life. They start with his landlord, Carlos.
Carlos provides us a very key piece of information telling us that the night before, on December 20th, Landy gets home from work sometime around 11:30 p.m. Carlos tells us that he talked to Landy that night after work when he got home and that everything appeared to be great.
And the day of the homicide, Carlos tells us that he left for work at approximately 600 hours on this day, that Landy was at the residence, sleeping in his bedroom.
This tells detectives that on the morning of the murder, Landy was possibly surprised by an intruder.
There's actually a broken window right next to the door. There's obvious signs that there is a damage to a door that is ajar.
It has signs of pry marks as if forced entry was used to get into the house.
Detectives suspect that the intruder may have found Landy still in bed and overpowered him.
And a struggle occurred between him and the killer. And Landy was bound by duct tape via his wrists and his ankles.
And it's likely Landy's killer then forced him into the shower, damaging the door in the process, and drenched him.
That's where the water...
We're thinking he escaped to go to that back bedroom, possibly to make that 911 call.
Investigators suspect that Landy ended the call when the killer caught up to him.
And he was shot twice with a .380 caliber handgun.
But there's one thing that puzzles detectives.
Where is his phone? If he called 911, where's his phone at? Did the killer take it with him? Is it somewhere hidden? We're looking all over the place. And lo and behold, we actually locate a cell phone in between the mattress and box spring of the bed, just feet away from Landy's body.
But the phone is locked. And so we don't know if that phone might potentially belong to the victim or potentially a suspect.
It's extremely frustrating. Everything in our gut is telling us that there's something on this phone, and we need to know what it is.
While forensic technicians attempt to unlock the contents of the phone, detectives broaden their search to other rooms in Landy's house. In the living room, something odd catches their eye.
There's a pool table, and on that pool table is a large 65-inch screen TV resting diagonally. It had been unscrewed and taken off the wall.
They discover it's not the only thing that's out of place.
We see evidence on scene of bags packed with electronic equipment, various things that could be pawned for money. There's also money found.
This evidence leaves detectives wondering, was Landy Martinez's murder the result of a bungled burglary? Instead of an intruder surprising Landy in bed, maybe Landy woke up and surprised the intruder.
Sometimes burglars are interrupted in the middle of the burglary, which can lead to violence.
So we're trying to find out, do we have a burglar who may have hit this house?
If that's true, detectives suspect there may be potential witnesses.
We need to have detectives go door to door and make contact with people to find out, has anything odd occurred today? Have you seen anything? Have you heard anything?
Several neighbors had reported two individuals who were going door to door soliciting magazine sales.
They were both described as Hispanic, in their late teens, early 20s.
Both individuals were seen leaving the area at a hurried pace, headed eastbound down the street where this happened.
And it was at the same time that we received the 911 calls, around 10 in the morning.
911.
It's a promising lead, but it raises an important question.
That leads us to think that we may... So, did these magazine sales kids have something to do with Landy's murder? We need to find these kids.
Detectives suspect the murder of Landy Martinez may have been due to a bungled burglary. They believe two young magazine salesmen may be responsible.
On the day of the homicide, several of the neighbors reported two young males going door to door attempting to sell magazines. The neighbors thought that that was somewhat suspicious.
We don't know whether these are people just checking to see if someone is home or maybe burglarized homes.
But we were lucky to develop a lead with one of the witnesses who had obtained a card with the information of the company.
Detectives reach out to the sales company to confirm if they had assigned two young men to Landy's neighborhood.
They said their business model involved employing high school and college students to solicit magazine sales.
And we find out that they did dispatch two young adults in the vicinity at the time of the murder to try to sell magazines to various residences.
They were able to provide us with the names of the individuals that would have been in our area at the time this offense occurred.
Could they be killers?
Detectives bring them in for questioning and interview each separately to see if their stories match. It doesn't take them long to get to the truth.
They did not have any involvement in the murder, and they also did not see anything suspicious during this time.
They appeared to be telling the truth. They tell us that they were trying to get money for college, so we cleared them at the time.
Detectives are left wondering, who else could have robbed and murdered Landy Martinez? They revisit the autopsy report for any new details that might lead to the perpetrator's identity.
The medical examiner found two gunshot wounds, and they see that there's other injuries to Landy. One is a laceration right between his eyes, near his eyebrow. The other is bruising and defensive wounds in areas of his hands and forearms and wrists. We also found evidence of chemical burns in Landy's body, in areas of his eyes, his nose, and his throat.
The autopsy report reveals that these chemical burns were caused by the drain cleaner found in Landy's bathroom.
We suspect that the drain cleaner was used to torture Landy in the bathroom area of the residence.
This was a horrible fact to find out.
And it raises a puzzling question. Why would a burglar torture Landy Martinez before killing him?
An element of sadism on the part of the perpetrator. So this person may have not wanted to just kill Landy. He wanted Landy to suffer.
Now we're starting to wonder, maybe it wasn't a burglary that had gone bad. Maybe this was planned.
This is a personal attack. They take him, secure him, training the hands and the feet, and torture him and eventually kill him. This shows that there's an extensive amount of time here, whereas if it was a burglary, they're going to take the stuff and they're going to go.
This evidence suggests it's possible Landy knew his attacker.
So we need to dig and find more about Landy's life to find anything of evidentiary value.
Detectives begin with the person who made the second 911 call. Landy's roommate, Yadira Guzman.
She was very emotional, very upset at his demise.
Yadira Guzman is close friends with Landy. They actually met because they worked together in the medical industry as certified nursing assistants.
Yadira also shared that Landy was openly gay. And just before he was murdered, he had started seeing a man named Jonathan Galicia.
Jonathan Galicia was Landy's new love interest that was in the developmental stages.
Yadira tells detectives that Jonathan called her in the morning of his murder, and he expressed concern for Landy.
Since Jonathan is a boyfriend to Landy, maybe he's able to provide us with an investigative lead.
Detectives call Jonathan to hear what he has to say, and they're surprised by his response.
When he's initially contacted, he does ask if he needs an attorney. This is an odd statement. If you've done nothing wrong, you don't need an attorney, and then he's asking for an attorney right off the bat. So that does set off an alarm bell for investigators.
Jonathan agrees to an interview about his boyfriend's murder.
We know through previous investigations that your significant other, your paramour, may well be the perpetrator. So Jonathan is quite possibly the person that we're looking for. He's emotional, upset, what you would expect to see if you were told that a loved one was deceased.
Jonathan told us he met Landy about a month before. They have spent a ton of time together, and Jonathan is absolutely enamored with Landy.
But before Landy was killed, Jonathan worried that Landy's feelings weren't mutual.
Jonathan tells us that he's concerned that Landy is being deceitful because he's talking to his ex-boyfriend.
A man named Jose Adame.
And Landy does his best to reassure Jonathan that he's in love with him.
We learned of a three-way phone call that occurred the night before Landy is murdered. Landy wants to reassure Jonathan that he is not interested in Jose.
So Landy tells him, I'm going to do a three-way phone call with my ex-boyfriend. And on that phone call, you're going to hear how I don't love him anymore.
And at midnight, December 21st, just hours before his murder, Landy places the three-way phone call that includes himself, Jonathan, and his ex-boyfriend, Jose.
And during that phone call, he's telling Jose that he found a new boyfriend, that he was really happy with him, that he loved him, and just wanted to make sure that he understood that the relationship between he and Jose is over with.
Jonathan claims that the phone call ended on a positive note.
Detectives ask Jonathan his whereabouts after the phone call ended.
Jonathan tells us he went to bed because he had to work in the middle of the night. His shift began somewhere around 3 in the morning. He went to work for about a 3 to 4 hour period of time, where he gets off work around 7. And as he gets off work, he allegedly texts Landy, "Hi, I just got off work. I'm on my way home. I love you."
Jonathan then reveals something surprising. Landy responds that he wants to break up.
But he gets a text message back from Landy's phone saying that Jose is the love of his life, that he wants to get back with Jose.
So here Jonathan is, wondering what is going on here. I had a boyfriend and now my relationship is over. So we're now looking at Jonathan and wondering, how jealous were you? Did Jonathan murder Landy?
At the end of 2011, Pinellas, Florida Sheriff's detectives discovered that Jonathan Galicia was jilted by his boyfriend, Landy Martinez, just hours before Landy was murdered. Is it possible that Jonathan is responsible for the torture and homicide of Landy?
Jonathan is definitely a suspect in this investigation. Jonathan is the new boyfriend, so most likely Landy is murdered by someone that he knows.
If Jonathan did murder his boyfriend Landy, it's also likely Landy would have fought back before being killed. So detectives look for evidence of a struggle on Jonathan's body. Cuts, bruises, or abrasions.
We ask him to submit to being photographed, and we observe anything that we can on his face, his neck, his arms, his hands.
He's very cooperative, and he doesn't appear to show any signs of injury.
But before investigators rule him out as a potential suspect, they need to
in a warehouse, and we were able to obtain video surveillance from that business, which showed him working right before the murder. And when Jonathan got off work, he did send a text to Landy.
But it doesn't tell the whole story, because were you texting from the house where Landy was, or were you texting from home like you claimed to be?
To find out, detectives contact Landy's cell phone provider.
The cell phone company used cell phone towers that will triangulate the location of that phone at the time these calls and text messages were made.
And we confirmed that he was definitely 60 miles north at the time all these text messages occurred between this phone and Landy's.
Jonathan Galicia is at his house in Hernando County, so we know that his phone was not at the crime scene at the time this offense occurred.
Jonathan Galicia is eliminated as a suspect. But he does point investigators in a whole new direction. Detectives turn their attention to Landy's other ex-boyfriend, Jose Adame.
Landy was recently in a relationship with Jose Adame. That relationship ended approximately a month before the murder.
That's an excellent lead.
To gather more background on Jose, detectives start with Landy's roommate, Yadira, to find out what she might know about Jose.
Jose is from North Carolina, and he met Landy just over a year before online. In the beginning, they had a great relationship. They had fun together, and they moved in together very shortly after dating, and they appeared to be this average, normal couple in love.
But Yadira says it wasn't long before Landy had serious concerns about his relationship with Jose Adame.
Landy eventually found out that who he thought Adame was and who Adame actually was were two totally different people.
Jose had some previous run-ins with law enforcement with aggression towards individuals, including Landy.
Their volatile relationship eventually reaches a breaking point, and Landy tells Jose he needs to move out.
Adame wasn't working, so he was really relying on Landy as his financial support. And as you can imagine, when Landy says, hey, I don't want to go out with you anymore, Adame's place to reside is gone. Any financial considerations that he was getting from Landy are gone.
Yadira tells detectives that the jilted Jose found a way to get revenge on Landy.
Jose was in possession of this red Acura SUV. However, the SUV is actually in both Landy's name and Jose's name.
When the relationship ended, Jose left and he moved out and he took this vehicle.
And that Landy would get all these tickets and rack up all these fees, which could potentially harm Landy by suspending his license if he doesn't pay these fees.
So Landy getting traffic citations in the mail, which he is responsible for.
So he knows he's got to stop Jose. It's gone too far. He goes to the DHSMV where he says, I need to remove Jose Adame from this title and vehicle registration, and I want it just in my name.
But Landy still has one big hurdle to overcome. He needs to get the car back in his possession.
Jose was located in North Carolina at his mother's residence, so Landy devised a plan where he contacted Jose, told Jose that he missed him, that he wanted to talk about getting back together. This made Jose very happy, very excited. And Landy said, well, why don't you come down here? Let's meet, have lunch together, and talk about our relationship.
The two agree to meet in a restaurant parking lot. But what Jose believes will be a reconciliation is really about Landy getting the car back.
Landy contacted law enforcement requesting their assistance. He anticipated that there was going to be an issue.
And ultimately, the deputies on scene inform Jose that he needs to get his stuff out. And the car, in fact, needs to go back to Landy because Jose is no longer considered an owner. So this absolutely came as a blindside to Jose. He just spent hours driving south from North Carolina to Florida in the hopes of reconciling with the love of his life, and only to find out that he was there to get tricked. And this
only way Landy could actually regain the automobile. The problem is that from Jose's perspective, he may have seen this as a public humiliation, which we know can lead to rage.
Detectives wonder, is it possible Jose's rage escalated to murder?
This quite possibly could lead to the motive for this homicide.
Detectives have just discovered that 2 weeks before Landy Martinez was murdered, he called deputies to help get his car back from his ex-boyfriend, Jose Adame.
Landy has completely terminated the relationship, basically stranding Jose without a vehicle, with shattered dreams of the reconciliation of the relationship and embarrassing him.
Is he going to become furious and angry and potentially harm Landy?
Detectives need to speak with Jose Adame, but there's a problem.
We have no idea where he is. We look everywhere for Jose in Pinellas County. We're doing everything we can to try to find him because we need to talk to him.
As detectives continue their search for Jose, they catch a big break. Forensic technicians have finally unlocked the cell phone that was found at the crime scene.
And we were able to learn that the phone actually belonged to Landy's cell phone number.
It was the same phone that Landy used to make his terrifying 911 call on December 21st.
They want to kill me. Hurry up, please. Hurry! Hurry!
But detectives are puzzled. Why didn't Landy's killer take his cell phone after he was murdered?
The cell phone was actually found tucked between the mattress and a box spring in the room that Landy was found in.
There doesn't seem to be any other explanation other than this having been done deliberately.
Likely by Landy himself.
It's quite remarkable that Landy, after being tortured, has the presence of mind after calling 911 to conceal his phone. Because it's far enough out of plain view that his killer doesn't see it. And what he's doing is essentially future-proofing one of the best pieces of evidence.
The evidence Landy concealed during his dying moments breaks the case wide open.
We were able to obtain the contents of that phone, and we discovered a video that was recorded on that phone.
When detectives view it, they're shocked by what they see.
This is probably one of the most chilling videos I've ever seen.
It is the bathroom inside the crime scene, and Landy is seen on the video. His wrists are duct taped together. He is crying. He is pleading, and he is definitely fearful for his life.
This video was taken the same day of Landy's murder and within the time frame of his murder.
But who shot the video remains a mystery.
It's clear that someone else is holding the cell phone. Someone else is recording this.
Whoever was recording it was very careful not to implicate themselves, not to video themselves or speak during the video.
As detectives watch the video, they hear a clue.
He mentions Jose.
This is one of the big breaks in the case. On the recording, Landy tells Jose that he is sorry for everything he's ever done. Everything was his fault, and that Jose was great. None of it was Jose's fault, and he was lucky to ever have Jose in his life as a partner.
I'm sorry.
And you would have to assume that what he's saying, he's been instructed to say. Landy is in the tub. He's distraught. His hands are visible and bound by duct tape. But he made it a point to say that Jose had nothing to do with this.
The video strongly suggests Jose was likely Landy's killer. But because Jose himself is neither seen nor heard of,
We were able to get Jose's phone number to try to find out where was Jose Adame during the time frame of the murder. And we find out that he was actually in Pinellas County, Florida, and he was hitting off cell towers not far away from where Landy was murdered. So now we're able to obtain an arrest warrant because there's more and more leading to Jose.
but police still haven't been able to find him.
The only way that we can find him is by his cell phone.
Jose's cell phone records reveal that the day after the murder, he traveled 600 miles north from Florida to spend Christmas at his mother's in Hickory, North Carolina.
So we have good intelligence that Jose's probably gone back to the state of North Carolina where his family's located. Now we need to close in on him.
With no jurisdiction to arrest Jose in North Carolina. Florida detectives ask U.S. Marshals to execute the arrest warrant against Jose.
But we were asking ourselves this question. When the U.S. Marshals get to North Carolina, is he going to go quietly?
On December 27, 2011, less than a week after Landy Martinez's murder in Florida, U.S. Marshals in North Carolina tracked down the prime suspect, the victim's ex-boyfriend, Jose Adame.
We were able to arrest Jose Adame on an arrest warrant and place him into custody where we could sit down and talk with him.
When we met him, he was extremely emotional, upset. He was actually vomiting extensively, uncontrollably, all signs of stress.
Jose admits that he talked to Landy on December 20th during that freeway phone call sometime after midnight. And he also claims he was in North Carolina at the time of the murder.
But Jose's cell phone records tell detectives a different story.
There was actually information that put his phone here in Pinellas County at that time and not in North Carolina. We actually confront Jose with this information so that he can tell the truth.
But Jose continues to deny he had anything to do with Landy's murder.
He claims he's innocent. Jose tells us he was stranded in Pinellas County and that his family came down and picked him up and brought him back to North Carolina on December 17th, where he then remained.
Detectives need to corroborate Jose's story with his family, so they travel to Hickory, North Carolina to interview them.
We'd interview the mother and with 7 sisters that all resided in a mobile home.
Jose's family told us that Jose has been in North Carolina and was present at the time Landy was murdered.
Every family member told detectives the same story about Jose.
Home, she was able to provide crucial information in this investigation.
This young female is identified as Jose's niece, Maria.
She explained that she had driven to Pinellas County, Florida to pick up Jose in her mother's vehicle, and she drove him back to Hickory, North Carolina. But then she explained that the very next day, Jose borrowed her mother's vehicle and went back to Florida the night before the murder, and then came back home the following night after the murder.
It's a big break in the case. Did Jose murder Landy in Florida, then drive home to North Carolina? If he did, then the vehicle he drove, a black Chevy Trailblazer, may contain evidence to prove it.
We obtained a search warrant, and we searched that vehicle.
Inside, investigators find damning evidence pointing to Jose as Landy's killer.
There was a cotton cloth glove matching the glove that was found inside the crime scene in the bathroom.
And in this glove, we find Landy's DNA on the outside, and we find Jose's DNA on the inside.
Blood is identified on the steering wheel of the vehicle.
And inside the driver compartment, we find trace evidence of Landy Martinez's blood. At this point, we know that Jose Adame had something to do with Landy Martinez's murder.
But detectives believe Jose may be hiding even more than his role in the crime.
We recall listening to the chilling 911 call where Landy Martinez screams out, "They're going to kill me."
They want to kill me. Hurry up, please. Hurry!
If it was a singular person, he would have used the word he, not they.
So we realized that we're looking for 2 perpetrators.
Investigators press Jose to name his accomplice.
Jose's denying everything and not implicating anybody.
But they know who might be able to help. Jose's niece, Maria. She provides the name of a young man she says accompanied Jose on his trip to the victim's house. Jose's nephew, Dylan.
Dylan was a 16-year-old high school student and a relative of Jose.
Detectives were able to get a phone number for this Dylan. And in doing research of the phone data, they actually found that during the time frame of Landy's murder, they can pinpoint that Dylan was in Pinellas County at that time.
But without any hard evidence, detectives can't arrest or even detain the minor.
As we move forward with this investigation, we quickly find that there's evidence that he fled to Mexico and is no longer even in the United States.
Since Dylan is a minor and outside of U.S. jurisdiction, he's safe from prosecution.
For police have a accomplice, especially in a crime as heinous as this, who is just beyond your reach.
The state attorney's office did not file charges on Dylan. They focused and only filed charges on Jose.
With the evidence obtained from the cell phone video, Landy's friend's statements, DNA on the glove and the trailblazer, and Landy's phone recovered at the murder scene, detectives can now piece together the last 24 hours of Landy Martinez's life.
We know that on December 20th at 11:30 p.m., Landy returns home from his job.
At 12 a.m., Landy has a three-way call with Jonathan and Jose, and in that call, he tells Jose it's over for good.
Jose and his accomplice drive from North Carolina to Landy's home in a Chevy Trailblazer.
Between 7 a.m. and 7:30 in the morning, Landy's house is broken into by Jose and the second perpetrator, at which time they take him, secure him, and torture him.
Jose shoots video of Landy's suffering on Landy's own phone.
They are forcing him to say things such as he was wrong for ending his relationship with Jose.
I'm sorry.
At 7:45 a.m., Jonathan texts Landy's phone telling him he loves him. And in response, receives messages that we believe were sent from Jose Adame.
At 9:40 in the morning, Landy is able to escape his bindings, obtain his cell phone, and make a 911 call to report the attack.
And before Jose and his accomplice are able to subdue him, Landy manages to hide his cell phone underneath his mattress.
I think that he did that to help investigators solve his own case.
Shortly after, Jose Adame and Dylan enters the bedroom where Landy Martinez is and shoots him twice, killing him.
Detectives suspect that after Landy was murdered, Jose and his accomplice attempted to rob Landy of his TV and other valuables. Fearing police were on their way, they quickly abandoned the plan.
And that's why they didn't get to load up all of the property that they had stored at the front door to steal. They just fled.
In July 2016, Jose Adame is tried for the murder of Landy Martinez.
And Jose Adame is convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison.
This one's bittersweet because we did get Jose, who is the reason for this homicide of Landy Martinez, even this many years later.
This case is so tragic because it reminds us that violence doesn't just occur in the context of a certain type of relationship. Gay men are equally as likely to have violence occur in the relationship, and that resulted in this ultimate torture and eventual murder.